Hello and welcome to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Fremont Unified Assistant Superintendent Dr. Raul Zamora. I'm sitting in for the wonderful host, KK Kaneshiro. Just across the bay from Silicon Valley, Fremont is a center of innovation in a number of industries. These businesses require skilled employees trained in the STEM fields of science, technology, engineering, and math. Fremont Unified has partnered with the City of Fremont to find ways of bringing businesses and students together for the benefit of all. With us today to discuss this new FUSE program is a FUSE Fellow from the City of Fremont, Parker Thomas, along with FUSE Director, Curriculum and Instruction, Linda Anderson. Welcome to the show. Let's start off with, what does FUSE mean?
I don't think it's an acronym for anything. FUSE is a nonprofit in San Francisco, and what they do is pick mid-career executives and pull them into a year of public service, usually working at the city manager's office or the mayor's office. And there are 35 FUSE fellows in cities across the country right now.
Oh, that's excellent. So when we talk about defining the maker education, can you tell us what's the goal of the maker education?
Well, when you talk about maker education, it's hard to define, but I think what it really boils down to is letting kids explore, discover, tinker, sort of own their own learning journeys, and to construct the knowledge that they need in order to be successful in life and careers, as opposed to sitting in rows and listening.
Right. And so, Linda, have you also experienced the exploration with student learning and how we're starting to develop that more in schools?
So when this whole thing started about 2 years ago, that was the main purpose, really helping kids, giving kids the opportunity to explore, to problem solve, to be creative, rather than us as educators just completely talking to them. So giving them the opportunity to know that it's okay to try it this way, it may not work, try it another way, it may not work. And again, so they're problem solving.
Great.
For their learning.
And Parker, you mentioned that there's other FUSE fellows. Is the program in other school districts as well, and just in California, nationwide?
It's nationwide, but each FUSE fellow has a different assignment, and I'm the only one that's working in this idea of creating an HR pipeline for advanced manufacturing. So we have FUSE fellows working around homelessness, climate resiliency, workforce development, sending kids to college, lots and lots of areas of city government.
So tell us more about your background and then what drew you to this goal of working with us?
It was 15 years ago. I decided that I wanted to build an airplane, and I didn't even know that was possible. I had always wanted to fly, and it turns out that flying is very expensive, and so there's a catch. If you build the airplane yourself, it's actually a whole lot cheaper. And so with that flawless logic, I set out to build myself an airplane, and it proved to be the most profound learning experience of my entire life. I certainly learned a ton about airplanes. I finished it. It took about 2 years and 3,400 hours. But what I really learned was how I learn. And I learn when I get to use my hands to explore the world, when I can construct a framework of knowledge and then start to hang pieces on it in a way that I was not able to do in school. So that sort of kick-started a journey for me. We ended up trying to duplicate this sort of process for our own children, and we put them in a Montessori school, and then ended up creating a charter Montessori school for them. And then I started helping other schools figure this out. And I really enjoyed the process of creating maker spaces, creating maker programs, but I really wanted to find a place to work that was at a city level or a district level, and that's when I found out about this program.
And so when you say you built your own plane, what exactly are you talking about, just to be clear?
It's a two-seater, pilot in front, passenger in back, 220 mile an hour, fully aerobatic airplane.
Not a model airplane.
You get in it and you fly around.
Okay, just to be clear, sometimes we talk about I build my plane. Well, I built a model plane, but you actually built an actual.
I went to Maine, all through the Bahamas, Death Valley, over the Grand Canyon, and pretty much every place in between.
That's excellent. So that's the hands-on learning that you're trying to bring to the students in the schools to really get that experience.
You don't need to build an airplane to be able to do that. It starts with hot glue guns and cardboard. It's really the process of defining a challenge. Either the challenge is given to you, or somebody else, or you can define it yourself. But it's the process of problem solving. That was my challenge, and there were hundreds of little challenges in the process of it. But it's an iterative process of creative problem solving that you go through when you make just about anything.
Right. And so, Linda, when you were a site principal, it's really important for students to take that first step. It takes a little bit of confidence to experiment.
Right.
What's been your experience as far as that's
So
concerned?
I was sitting here listening to Parker. I'm thinking of little 5-year-olds. So even when you put Legos in front of them, that they put their Legos together, but then, okay, what's another way? And what's another way they can try it? That's one example. And then even out on the playground, as they're learning to play tetherball or foursquare, what's problem solving, different strategies for there too. And in the classroom, not just talking at them, but again, giving them problems, inquiry-based problems that they can then pull apart, put back together, work together, be creative. And the big thing again is it may not work the first time. So let's talk about how it's going to work the second time. And I'm sure Parker could probably talk about that even further with his plane. It probably didn't work the first time, certain parts together. I'm thinking of flashlights too. We did a PD where teachers made their own flashlight. Okay, it doesn't work this way, so maybe we could try it this way. So just given the opportunity rather than just say, A to Z, this is how you do it.
And that's a really important statement you made, Linda. I'm sure your plane probably had to go through some modifications as you built it on the process, and that's a process to learn as well, isn't it?
Yes, I found it, in that particular case, I found an amazing teacher who was he had never finished the 9th grade and knew more about airplanes than I will ever know. When I met him, he owned 3 construction companies and owned his own airfield outside of Louisville, Kentucky. And for some reason, he decided to teach me, and he knew exactly how to teach me.
So what do families and students need to know about the manufacturing industry here in the area?
Well, so the first thing that I did when I got here was go out and talk to the manufacturers. And I've done, so far, I think I've done about 107 interviews with people in the community, and quite a few of those have been with manufacturers. And what they're saying is that kids need 3 things to be ready for advanced manufacturing. The first is STEM skills, but they define that as a sort of a set of background knowledge that would enable you to learn quickly on the job. The second is creative problem-solving skills, and they were quick to break out creative problem-solving skills from STEM skills. STEM, they seem to think is a set of knowledge, but it doesn't include kind of what you would do with that knowledge. So creative problem-solving is the second area. And then the third is simply that manufacturing jobs exist, that they can be really rewarding and a path to a good life.
Can you talk to me more about, you said you talked to several manufacturers, but I'm sure you also talked to educators and government officials. Can you talk about that process and what that entailed?
In terms of what they had to say?
Correct, and who actually you talked to in groups?
Well, I've talked to, as part of the interview process, educators, administrators, business leaders, city officials, city council, parks and recreation, the library, parents, students. I've tried to capture a pretty good cross-section of Fremont. And the way that I knew when I was done is I would ask each person, who are 3 more people that I should go talk to? And when I started getting referred back to the same people, I thought I was done.
A full circle.
The listening tour will never be over, but I'm starting to move on into a synthesis phase of everything that I heard.
What's been your work so far with our teachers in our district?
Well, I've done a couple of things. I would say that we're still figuring out what the program itself will look like. I think there's going to be several different components of it. But as a way of getting started, we've started to do some professional development program. In the one that we've done so far was in December. And we pulled together pretty quickly a group of 10 or 12 teachers, and we started to help them understand how they could implement a version of maker education in their own classroom. And so we did a project in which they built a flashlight, but they had to figure out how to build it. So they got a switch, a set of wires, and a battery and a light. and then figured out how to put it together and then how to make it resilient, which means that you could actually pick it up and move it. And they built a flashlight using a found object, so something that one of them used a bagel as the case for this flashlight. And the point of this is that there's no right answer, so they have to discover what the right answer is, how it works, and then how to fit it in a case that they create. And in doing so, starting to understand what we're asking children to do at the same time.
And so, Linda, how do you compare this type of learning with the Common Core standards?
The Common Core standards are a result of companies and colleges saying, you're giving us robotic learners that only know when we tell them to go from A to Z, complete linear line, that's what they're going to follow. We need kids that are going to problem solve themselves, create themselves, come up with answers themselves by trying different things. So it very much goes with Common Core and the next generation science standards. Because that's what the next generation science standards are all about. Phenomena, give them a phenomena to work with, to create, to try to solve this problem. And again, we always say that it's not okay to fail, it is. Fail and then try again. And I think Parker talked quite a bit about that. And the other thing that I just wanted to put in too, there are definitely pockets of all this Makers Ed, Project Lead the Way happening in our school sites. And I think that's a lot of what Parker saw too. There are things occurring where kids are being given the opportunity to create and problem solve certain things that are given to them.
So through the inquiry-based learning and having the teachers there working with you,
Yes.
did they present feedback to you? Oh, I know how this can relate back into the classroom now. What was the conversations around that?
I think we are, the biggest takeaway from talking to the businesses in particular was that every single one of them wants to be involved with schools in some way. But there are no easy frameworks for them to be involved. I think my hypothesis is that if we ask businesses to be involved in a way that is resource constrained, time constrained, it's a clear ask about what they need to put forward, and then what they get out of it, they will jump in. We just have to create that framework. And where we have created it, they're involved.
Great. So as we focus on learning, what was the students' reaction that you worked with about the project?
We haven't done much with students yet around this particular effort, but I can tell you that what I saw in classrooms across the district was that there are, as Linda mentioned, these pockets of innovation all over the place. And they range from Wendy Goodfellow's classroom, where they, instead of studying the life cycle of fish, they actually grow fish. They grow trout and then release them into the wild. Or Jess Norling's classroom, where they are creating what they call doomsday machines, where they actually have to convert wind energy into doing something else, like pump water or saw wood. The level of engagement for students in those classrooms is just off the charts. You can walk into the classroom and you physically feel something that's different. And I think that sort of speaks to what we're trying to accomplish.
You visited classrooms or with the classroom teachers. Are there certain strategies that you've seen that have impressed you as part of in talking with them and working with them?
Well, I think in every one of those pockets of innovation, the teacher's taken a step back and letting the kids go on a journey on their own. They can frame up a challenge and then let the kids explore, let the kids fail if needed. But that feels like if there was one common theme, it's they've gotten the kids excited about a particular topic and then step back.
Right. So I think we probably need to qualify why we want to see students fail, right? Because we're sometimes as parents we're so wrapped up in trying to be the high achieving and really want to push them forward.
Right.
And we're not accustomed to hearing the words fail, and not necessarily grade wise, but on a project. Why is that important? And as a parent, can you explain that to me?
So when we are so big on making sure we get in the frontal, I'm going to talk brain a little bit, in the frontal lobe and give them data, give them facts. But when you just plant it there and you don't allow it to get all over the brain and really cement in there, it doesn't stay. They'll take that test, they'll regurgitate the information, but it hasn't stayed. So by trying things out and trying it this way and trying it that way, there's maybe the word failure maybe is a little bit too big, but it's the trying out different ways till it's really cementing in your head and you've taken ownership of it. With teachers too, I say that they're facilitators of learning. So they're encouraging that learning with kids. Because a lot of time kids are just so big on, well, I need to know just the facts and get it into my head and then I'll take the test and I'm good. No. We need to help you cement it all over in your brain so it stays there and you're excited about it. So I think with the word failure, it's, well, did it cement? Do you own it? Is it there? Well, if not, let's try it another way. And let's try it another way.
It's application of the learning.
Exactly.
Exactly. Great.
Yeah.
And so, what do you have planned for the rest of this time that you're here, Parker?
So 3 weeks ago, we did a big community meeting that was a big brainstorm around something we're calling the Fremont Learning Network, which will be a community network that will create those frameworks that will enable companies to plug into schools. Okay, and it identified really 5 big areas of work. How do we collaborate with businesses? What does the community engagement look like? What's the right, I don't want to use the word curriculum, but it's really a series of projects that will help kids learn hands-on skills and so forth. And so what I'm doing now is I am inviting the community to be part of that process. I'm putting together what I'm calling some Tiger teams. And a Tiger team is a short-term, multidisciplinary project team that's going to create some prototypes around each of those areas. So I'm looking for some help from the community, and we're going to create some prototypes and then experiment with them before the end of this school year.
Great. And how do they contact you?
pthomas@fremont.gov.
Great, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Parker and Linda, for joining us at Community Conversations. And thank you here at Community Conversations for your wonderful support to our school district, and we'll see you next time.